One, of course, in Minnesota, where there are new demands for ICE to leave the state following Saturday's deadly shooting by federal agents of a man, Alex Pretti. A judge will hear arguments today about the investigation and about the legality of the operation. 1,000 people marched through the streets of downtown Minneapolis this weekend following the shooting of the 37-year-old Pretti. He is the second U.S. citizen killed in Minneapolis by federal agents this month, less than 3 weeks after an ICE agent fatally shot and killed Renee Good. Multiple cell phone videos capture the moments before Pretti was killed. In the footage, Pretti is seen holding a cell phone before several officers tackle him and bring him to the ground. One officer appears to retrieve a gun and turn away, and then just a second later, an agent shoots and kills him. State and federal officials are providing starkly different accounts of what happened and who's to blame.
This individual showed up to impede a law enforcement operation and assaulted our officers. They responded according to their training and took action to defend the officer's life and those of the public around him.
People have had enough. This is the third shooting now in less than 3 weeks. The Minneapolis Police Department went the entire year last year recovering about 900 guns from the street, arresting hundreds and hundreds of violent offenders, and we didn't shoot anyone.
All right, CBS News national correspondent Lana has been in Minnesota since the shooting happened and joins us now. So, Lana, I don't know if you saw what we did on CBS Mornings earlier, where we had a split screen of what Secretary Noem was describing, and we showed the actual video that you've seen, that we've all seen, that shows a very different depiction of what she is suggesting. So what can you tell us about these very different accounts?
Well, immediately we heard from the federal government that that Pretti was the one to blame, that he was holding a gun and waving it at officers, but that video doesn't show that. So we're hearing slightly different accounts now from the federal government, but they're still sharply in contrast with what many of the people here believe, as well as what the state and local officials are saying. So I want to allow people to hear that in their own words. The first clip will be from CBP Commander Bovino, and then followed by Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
Our Title VIII immigration mission continues unabated here in Minneapolis, despite yesterday's tragedy that was preventable by folks making better choices, politicians, journalists, and would-be anarchists and rioters.
President Trump, you can end this today. Pull these folks back. Do humane, focused, effective immigration control. You've got the support of all of us to do that. Let our law enforcement continue to do what they do, making Minnesota one of the safest states in the country.
And those differing accounts will no doubt be at the center of a hearing today between the state and the federal government. Minnesota is trying to have a federal judge compel the federal government to allow the state access to that investigation.
And Lana, it's not just different accounts of what actually happened. We're also getting different accounts of who Alex Pretti was. You have the federal government calling him a domestic terrorist, and then you actually spoke to people who know him. So tell us what they say.
And that's right, Chanel. I asked, actually, people, what do they make of the idea that he's a domestic terrorist? And one of the friends that knew him back in college, his name is Robert Alver. He called that ridiculous, preposterous. I want to play some of what he had to say.
Alex was a really good person.
I mean, you see that smile, and what do you think?
That's him. That is how he came to work. He was serious about his work, but he wasn't serious. You know, quick with a joke and very funny.
It's a true loss for you.
It's a loss for everybody.
Robert Alver is not a left-wing agitator. He's kind of just a regular Minnesota guy, a scientist by training. And he says that really, in addition to having lost his life, they don't want him to lose the memory of who he actually is. So he was trying to make sure that people understood who Alex Pretti was to his friends and family.
The other thing, Lana, you and your producer, Sean Herbert, were there when this all happened, right? I mean, when this was all going down. I want to show some of your reporting as the protests ramped up on Saturday.
this moment, we're told that protesters who are crossing that line are being zip-tied and taken away. And you can see some people there directly in the faces of the law enforcement officers. We'll continue to watch and see what happens. They've set up barricades. There's a dumpster fire that looks like it's being brought right now over to the front lines where the officers are.
So just explain to us what you were able to hear and see during that moment.
Well, it feels like we need to explain to people that there are two different types of protests that are happening in the city, because there are those angry protests that erupted immediately following the shooting, in which we could feel and were irritated by the pepper spray in the air, and that literal dumpster fire. But then there are also so many peaceful protests that marched on Friday, where thousands walked these streets trying to demand that ICE get out. And actually, I spoke with one person at the memorial the other day, a set of grandparents who said that they don't consider themselves protesters, but they think what's happening is really wrong. So they wanted to be down there to mark the memory of Alex Pretti and ask ICE and the federal government to please leave.
All right. Lana Zach reporting from Minneapolis for us. Lana, as always, we appreciate you. Thank you.
And CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand joins us now from the White House with more on that perspective. So, Natalie, what are we hearing from the president about all this?
Good morning, Chanel and Vlad. Well, we have a new post from the president on social media. He announced that he is sending his border czar, Tom Homan, to Minnesota, saying he's tough and fair and, quote, will report directly to me. Now, Caroline Levitt, in reposting this message, said that Homan will be managing ICE operations on the ground and will also coordinate with those leading investigations into alleged fraud in Minnesota. And the president, in his post, alleged that fraud, he says, is at least, quote, partially responsible for what he called violent organized protests in the streets. In earlier social media posts this weekend, the president and administration officials sought to blame Minnesota for protests and what it called far-left agitators. The administration also blamed state and local officials for not cooperating with ICE, they say. But in a brief phone call with the Wall Street Journal, the president indicated that the situation is under review. When asked directly by the Journal whether he thought the officer who shot Pretti had done the right thing, the president said, quote, we're reviewing everything and will come out with a determination. But then he also went on to criticize Pretti for carrying a gun during the protest. Here in Washington, Senate Democrats and even some Republicans are calling for a full federal and state local investigation into what happened. Republican Bill Cassidy notably said that the credibility of ICE and DHS are at stake.
Yeah, so it's interesting, Natalie, that Tom Homan is going down there, because help me understand the structure. Part of the reporting that I've seen suggests that DHS, at least Kristi Noem, the secretary, isn't communicating with Homan about some of these operations. And it's not just this disconnect that exists between the feds and the local and state officials in Minneapolis, but even at the federal government level, there is a disconnect between Homan, and it's interesting that the president says that he's tough but fair. Almost indicates that what is happening in Minnesota, even the president realizes, is spiraling out of control.
And we also saw from Homan, following the killing of Renee Good, that some of Homan's statements calling, for an investigation and a review were very measured. So to your point, that is what stood out to me as well, that he's saying Homan will report directly to him. Obviously, what you brought up is something that lawmakers are concerned with as well, and really trying to have this conversation with the administration and also insert policy changes into the upcoming funding bills that will really take center stage over on Capitol Hill this week, with a deadline on Friday.
All right, Natalie Brand, thank you.